Hello and welcome to the Snap UK podcast, your weekly review of all things NFL by those in the know on this side of the pond. My name is Johnny Fash, and this week it's a full house.
Woo! Woo! Yeah!
It's myself, Jimmy G, 4 foot inches, Gilo, and Griff. Divisional weekend hit us with highs, lows, unexpected blowouts. A couple of players seemingly signed off their NFL careers, and a couple of coaches made big calls in big moments that didn't go their way. So let's start in order. NFC number 1 seed, the San Francisco 49ers, in the first playoff game since 2014, hosting the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings 10, 49ers 27.
I like how we're starting with the most uneventful game of the weekend.
This is the one that sent me to sleep.
Yeah, because I don't think one team only really showed up. I'm not really sure what happened to the Vikings. There's a lot of hype about them after beating the Saints, and I think a lot of the media, maybe us included as well, probably gave them a little bit too much credit and forgot how good the 49ers were.
The Vikings, in my opinion, did kind of shove it up a bit because were they 12-4?
10-6.
10-6.
I'm going to go back in my box. See you next week.
It's a strong start.
They were 10-6, and they kind of had a better end of the season, didn't they? The schedule improved for them, and they seemed to get a bit stronger as the season went on. But they didn't exactly set the world on fire. You guys were having issues with Kirk Cousins, and so were a lot of other.
They started off the season 2-2, didn't they?
So were the Vikings.
Kirk Cousins looked distinctly average, and then after that, where everyone was decrying that he should be let go at the end of the season, he turned it on and had a really good season. But I think the game plan for the match against the 49ers, and we're probably going to come on to talk about the offensive coordinator, that game plan was wrong from the start. And the 49ers did very well to bottle up the run, but Dalvin Cook was just a non-factor.
Yeah, I think, obviously the Niners, we all said it. I'd been saying it for a while, even though I hadn't been on there. I've been talking to John, especially saying we needed that bye week. Having that week 4 bye week helped our regular season, definitely. But we were definitely beaten up by the end of it. And getting players like D Ford back, there were some crazy stats around how many sacks per game we were getting when D Ford was playing. It was kind of 4 per game, and that dropped to 2 per game whilst he was missing. And I believe in this game we had another 4-sack game.
Yeah, Armstead.
Was it 6 in
Yeah,
there?
he had 6.
Sacks,
Armstead had 10 in the first 11 weeks of the season,
Yeah.
and then hadn't had one since D Ford had been out.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference when you've got 2 edge rushers that are going to dominate each edge, because you can't commit 2 players or 2 offensive linemen to block one Nick Bosa or D Ford. You've got to pay attention to both of them. And then with DeForest Buckner kind of through the middle, he's a wrecking ball as it is. It's difficult for any offensive line to deal with that
when you've got Armstead, Buckner, Ford and Bosa all coming, and most times we send all 4.
Yeah, and also you've got Solomon Thomas coming off the bench as well. As
another
another first round pick. Yeah, and they all got sacks at the weekend.
But the problem was they never got Dalvin Cook to the outside, did they? Never got him to the edge.
No, exactly. And
lots of players were at the edge, but they were still coming.
So it's really important that the Vikings clean up. So what are they going to do with their roster now they're out? That's the important thing for me.
My question with the Vikings is, what do you do with Diggs? Because I think he's disruptive as a player on that team. And I would be looking to ship him out, even though he's a really good wide receiver and it's one of the best 1-2 wide receiver combos in the league. He looks disgruntled whenever he's not getting the ball.
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't think it's good for the team.
He also wasn't that great at the weekend either.
He's fine.
Wasn't he ill heading into this game? He missed training, didn't he?
After what happened last week when they played the Saints, he had that hissy fit on the sideline. You've got to wonder whether that's.
Then he was ill. Sorry, you can't see my mock speech bubbles.
Exactly. He had 2 catches, 57 yards, and that touchdown. That touchdown went for 41. So 1 catch for 16 outside of that. That's not good for a receiver who's meant to
I don't
be
think
a number one
stats
receiver.
for any Vikings offense are going to tell you anything
Well,
after that first touchdown, because after that,
Yeah.
before garbage time set in, they went for, in about, I don't know, a 15 to 20 minute period, they went for net 10 yards.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Dalvin Cook.
I agree with Diggs, though. I think he's overpaid for what he is.
Yeah, look, he's had one good season, and I think he gets to look better because people concentrate on Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
I think he's an extremely talented player, but I think he's an arsehole. Because if you look at his roots and if you look at his speed and you look at his ability to change direction, which as a wide receiver we know is massively important, he can get separation, he can burn you for pace, he can run the right routes. So I think he's a very highly talented player, but the Vikings aren't a highly offensive team. They're not going to put up 400 yards. So you're looking to work out how you're going to share 200 yards between Thielen, Rudolph, Dalvin Cook, and Diggs. And Diggs wants the big numbers. That's the problem.
Yeah, he's greedy.
He's not good enough to demand the ball for me. There's certain players at wideout who they need the ball. You just give it to them.
Yeah, like Devontae Adams, who we'll get to later.
Yes.
Players like somebody like that, Amari Cooper on the Cowboys. People,
I think he is that good, though.
Even Adam Thielen as well. I think Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
I'd say 2 years ago it was Diggs and Thielen. I think now Thielen's a much better wide receiver, both in terms of how skillful he is and his route running, but also how good he is for the team. And he's just not a knock.
It's all about the attitude.
Being less of an arsehole is a big help.
It helps, yeah.
Dalvin Cook unable to get anything going on the ground for the Vikings. Nine rushes for 18 yards.
What about the ham?
And he had 6 receptions for 8 yards. Dalvin Cook. I don't know. CJ Ham's stats are not in front of me.
No,
The Vikings didn't shove in the ham.
No.
They did not. No,
It's
He didn't
unsurprising.
he
Well,
didn't have
at
any-
half time, they said they were going to run Dalvin Cook just down the hill and just try and create some lanes for him, and they just didn't manage to do it.
It just didn't
No,
happen.
the O-line didn't move the D-line at all.
No. I think the other, coming back to kind of game plans, I talked about Kevin Stefanski getting it wrong, but Kyle Shanahan just got every call right in terms of like the way to play the game, but also the tactical substitutions you made during the game. Like the Vikings were targeting Witherspoon in the first half. They were having success and quickly pulled him out, and Mosley goes back.
It was like one set.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like the first
No, exactly.
half. He got burned once,
Yeah.
and he just got taken out of the game immediately.
But then coming back to kind of your point about Diggs, on the flip side, Witherspoon comes out of the game and realises he's probably not going to get back into the game, and turns around to Shanahan and says, I will take all of Mosley's reps on special teams because he needs to be playing defence. And can you imagine Diggs doing that, or any of the Vikings players doing that?
I can imagine one or two, but not
Yeah,
Diggs.
the whole culture around the 49ers and the way they're all pulling together, and you kind of see it through social media, but you also see it on the pitch as well. They're all pulling for each other. There's no big star, and you could say George Kittle is the big star, but he doesn't act like that.
Well, George Kittle only got something like 16 yards on 3 catches
Yeah,
because he spent the whole game blocking. Because that was what we needed him to do.
There's another podcast I was listening to, and they said, he didn't have a very big game. He wasn't very effective. And he was like, he was massively effective because the amount of times the 49ers ran the ball and were able then to dominate times of possession. They had 38 minutes of possession.
Tevin Coleman, 22 rushes,
Yeah.
105 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Mostert he had 60 yards on a load of catches.
And
as well.
a fumble recovery
Yeah.
on a punt return as well.
The whole team was
38
brilliant.
minutes of possession.
That's crazy.
Well, I think
nuts.
the scary thing for most other teams watching this, especially Duncan's lucky Green Bay Packers, is that we didn't have to use much of our playbook at all for this.
No.
We didn't
Run.
Yeah.
We didn't
It's
show
just it, isn't it?
anything, any of our things we've designed for the playoffs.
There were no trick
for
plays
that,
at all.
I need something special moment. We didn't have to do any of that stuff whatsoever.
It's the use of movement before the snap that I really like in the 49ers.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it?
It's just you just
we
pull
use
a
it-
defence apart.
We use
Yeah.
it the most. We use it on something like 70% of snaps. We use movement.
Yeah.
Highest in the
Imagine,
NFL.
like, being in the defence and seeing all that movement and thinking, what the hell is going on? And it's also giving Garoppolo kind of clues as to kind of the defence.
So it does lead to the odd false start or...
Yeah, it does, but there wasn't that many penalties though, against the 49ers. When you're that dominant in a game, you don't have to commit penalties. You can go off the line half a second slower just to make sure you don't commit a penalty, because even the Vikings pass rush that was brilliant against the Saints wasn't getting to Garoppolo that much.
Yeah. And Griff's put in here about Sherman getting his 5th interception.
I think it was his 5th of the season, yeah.
Because I don't know if you saw that Sherman negotiated his own deal, didn't he?
Yeah.
With the Niners.
Oh, it was brilliant on Twitter, wasn't it?
And it was a very incentive-laden deal. He's coming to the end of his...
got absolutely ridiculed for it.
Yeah, and apparently he had to play something like 90% of snaps for one of the bonuses, but because he'd played 88 or 87.5%, John Lynch just paid him £1 million anyway. Went just before the playoffs. Just give him another $1 million.
He's been very quiet in the odd game, but the bye week was right for him.
Yeah.
Not overloading him, say giving him almost a third of every game off, has been brilliant because he absolutely leads your young
He's
defense.
just so clever.
He's the star of that team. Isn't
Yeah.
he?
Do you know, since 2011 when he was drafted, he's had 38 interceptions, which leads the league. We mustn't forget how phenomenal he was. He had 2 years with injuries where he just didn't do anything. Imagine how good he would have been if he hadn't got injured.
But he told you himself he's the best corner in the league.
It's
And he's
even
right.
better. They don't target him. As to how he's got 38, I have no idea.
No.
It's crazy.
But the thing that worries me is...
For a large part of his career, you were either going near Bobby Wagner, Cam Chancellor, or Earl Thomas. So you were fucked either way.
It's a bit like that right now.
Yeah, it's starting to
He's-
feel like that with the linebackers they've got.
He's most effective when he thinks he's being slighted, which is
Yeah.
when Super Bowl the Seahawks got to the Super Bowl. He had that, everyone thought he was an arsehole for the press conference he gave
Where you
afterwards.
gave Crabtree and gave
Yeah.
him a kind of a
But
grilling.
when he feels slighted, he turns up
But then
and he feels slighted for some
lots
reason.
of teams kind of work off that. I mean, the Patriots are famous for, aren't they? Oh, God, yeah, Deflategate. Look, everyone thinks we're cheating. Let's go out and win another 3 Super Bowls. You can point to any team that...
Mourinho did it for years,
Well, exactly,
didn't he?
yeah.
I think with Sherman, the thing is people have underestimated him this season. He wasn't great last year. He was recovering from injury. He was learning a new system. And people have underestimated him a little bit this year.
Well, I also
Second team All-Pro this year as well.
I also think the biggest difference now is that last year the pass rush were probably like about half a second of getting to the quarterback, and that affects the cornerbacks and the defensive backs. This year, with Bosa, with Armstead being brilliant, with Buckner and D4 kind of playing, they're getting to the quarterback. They're making those sacks, like we say, and that makes the cornerback's job that much easier. The quarterback is going to throw a slightly less accurate couple more wobbly passes and they'll get the interceptions and they'll get the blocks and they'll get the knockdowns.
But you imagine what he reacted to Michael Crabtree with. What's he going to react to Alan Lazard with?
We'll get on to Lazard. He wasn't stellar this weekend.
No, it's pretty poor.
I'm not going to... There's no Kirk Cousins bashing this week. Look, without a running game, 3/4 of the quarterbacks in the NFL aren't very good. Or
Also,
aren't good enough to win games.
There was a crazy moment in commentary, and I can't remember what the stat was, but it was something along the lines of, under pressure, he's not as good a quarterback as he is. And it's like,
Shock.
every single quarterback's the same. And he was under pressure the whole
My
time.
favourite comment was when they went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, and the commentator went, that's the offence being coordinated by the new Browns head coach there. And you were like, oh,
Well,
we'll get on to that
they
later.
kept saying it was a matchup between these two candidates,
Yeah.
and the Browns clearly weren't watching this.
No,
Because,
clearly not. They'd already made their decision, I think.
yeah,
The Browns doing a poor front office decision. I won't
We're
believe
getting to
it.
it. We're getting to it at the end.
No.
I've got a lot to say about that.
Let's
Let's
wait
put
for that one.
ice.
Let's wait for that one. Yeah. So, what do we think the Vikings have to do to remain relevant next season? They've already said they're sticking with Mike Zimmer, which I think is the right thing to do. But what do they need to change? We've got to assume you're going to build around Kirk Cousins. He's had, for the middle part of the season, he was actually really, really good. What was it? 3 interceptions to 21 touchdowns?
Yeah.
still need more on the O-line because when any game that they've lost, it was normally when their O-line gave up too many sacks. So, which sounds obvious, but it hasn't delivered all season. It's come up against some poorer defenses, and then they've been able to play. But I think they need to keep investing in that O-line.
Yeah.
The defence is good enough if they can keep enough pieces.
I don't think the defence is good enough.
No, well, the problem with the defence, they're going to be in salary cap hell, an issue. Everson Griffin's out of contract, and they need to decide whether they're going to keep him. Xavier Rhodes has been terrible this year.
Yes, Smith has been.
They brought back Sandejo, who they let go. And they need to find, Mike Hughes, the cornerback that they drafted a couple of years ago. He needs to get fit and come back regularly. And they need to figure out how to save some money across the whole of the team to be able to pay for some of their star players.
It should be good enough, the defence. It has been good enough in fits and starts. It's just when in the games like this,
two years ago it was superb, and it's just
last year wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, but just this year, seems
been better than average.
It
but
seems
it's not
like
been
an
as good.
end.
It has been a backward
an end
step.
for that defense.
Yeah.
I think.
Last 49ers player with 2 rushing touchdowns in a playoff game.
Kaepernick.
We're going Kaepernick.
Roger Craig.
Well, I think it was probably Kaepernick, but I
Frank
did say
Gore.
Gore first.
I'm going to give Gary Frank Gore. It was Frank Gore.
Hall of Fame.
Future Hall of Famer Frank Gore. Yeah, that was him. He was
Long
really
Service Award, Frank Gore.
good. That's the one.
I
Well,
just guessed he might have put it in there just for Duncan.
I mean,
I basically put it in there for you and Duncan. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, every season, one of the coordinators for the Vikings goes somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay.
More or less. Yeah.
Recently, anyway, because they've been fairly good.
They didn't last year because John DiFilippo got sacked halfway through the season and Stefanski took over,
Yeah.
who's basically a yes man. And again, we're going to come on to that.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to give Zimmer some consistency.
Yeah, he's still got Gary Kubiak there, who's
Well,
been
he's got
the-
a good frame to work
Yeah.
with, isn't he? But
That's where I was going to.
Gary,
We need a Zimmer
Gary,
frame.
I might be better than Stefanski Kubiak.
Yeah,
or his son,
Yeah.
yeah.
who was apparently also a candidate.
Well, let's move over to the AFC. Super Bowl favourites, the Baltimore Ravens, took on wildcard weekend surprise winners, Tennessee Titans, and another one didn't go to script for the Titans. They won 28-12.
When you say they won, Derrick Henry won 28-12 against the Ravens.
Well, it's not just him; it's him
more or less.
and the defence, isn't it? As
Last
well?
number 6 seed to reach the AFC Championship game.
The
Anyone?
Jets.
In
No,
2009?
2014.
2010.
I don't know.
Chad Pennington.
No, Mark Sanchez.
Mark Sanchez.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Don't
just-
forget.
I said I was going to get back in my box, and I keep failing.
Yeah.
I keep coming out again.
Somebody nailed the lid on the box.
Did they then lose to the Patriots?
Yes.
Yes, they did. Tannehill, first quarterback to win consecutive playoff games without throwing for 100 yards in either game.
Doesn't need
Didn't
to.
need to, but looked like he could if it was required because he wasn't really having any problems. And he converted.
2 touchdowns. Did he get 2 touchdowns?
And he converted
88 yards.
Wasn't one of them from Derrick Henry?
No. That was another touchdown.
But he converted on 3rd and short on a couple of occasions as well with his legs. It just doesn't look like he's under any pressure at all. Like, he must be thinking this is what it's like to play on a proper team that isn't the Dolphins.
That Titans offensive line absolutely dominated the Ravens.
Do you know what?
defensive
Taylor
line.
Lewan gets a bad rap because he gives away so many penalties,
Yeah.
and he does. But my God, when he gets it right, you do not go through him.
I mean, Derrick Henry's now had 3 games on the bounce with over 180 yards rushing.
First player ever.
We talk about Derrick Henry, and yes, he is brilliant. He's having a great season. He's put this team on his back, and he's literally carrying it because he's big enough. But that offensive line is absolutely dominating every team they come against. And let's be honest, they've come against the Patriots, who have got a really good defense, and the Ravens, who have a really good defense as well. And there's a couple of free agents. Jack Conklin's going to be a free agent going into at the end of the season, so they're going to have to pay a few people, but they want to keep that unit together.
Yeah, of course. You've got to keep the O-line, and you've got to keep Henry. I mean,
Well, you just
whatever you've got to pay him.
You've got to work out what's going to happen if they come up against a brick wall like the Niners. That's the question,
Well,
isn't it?
that'll be the big thing if they get that far. But I don't know. Right now, Henry is the best running back in the NFL.
Yep.
Pure running back.
Like not Christian McCaffrey.
Exactly,
An actual running back. He is the best in the NFL.
Just clarifying.
And much as with the Kirk Cousins situation, Tannehill needs a good running back. So if you're going ahead with Tannehill next season, you have to secure.
He's
Derrick
like
Henry.
good Marshawn Lynch, isn't he? That's what he is.
Marshall
Yeah,
Lynch was good
basically.
once.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what he's
Yeah.
like. When he was proper beast
Oh,
mode,
yeah,
that
exactly.
is what this is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Beast
Like
Mode
a
2.0.
pre-Skittles Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, if that's how you want to put it.
And then you can put any average quarterback with a player like that. But then if you can get... And what happened in Seattle was they put a special quarterback with a running back on offense without much else, and then had a great defense.
Yep.
So it's whether that Titans defense is good enough.
Well,
I think that's the big question.
They played it absolutely perfectly on Saturday. They forced Lamar Jackson to pass it.
Yeah.
Tried to pass it 59 times, which I think that's probably a career high. Completed 31 times, and he also rushed for 143 yards. And the box score, the stats look absolutely brilliant for Lamar Jackson, but he wasn't effective at all.
But are you going to keep the Chiefs, the Packers, or the Niners to less than 15 points? Because in essence, that's what they've done in both of the last 2 games.
I tell you what,
not sure you keep any of those offenses
Kenny
under 15
Vaccaro
points.
and Kevin Byard in that backfield are just interception machines. And if you can move Garoppolo off the spot, if you can move, any of the remaining quarterbacks off the spot.
So many schemes from the
It's
Niners.
actually Aaron Rodgers that I would think has the best shout against this lot now.
Yeah.
Garoppolo's probably 1 year too few in experience. And Mahomes is going to sling it regardless of whether the gap is there.
Is it about Garoppolo, though, or is it about Shanahan? Could Shanahan pick that apart?
Because Shanahan did a really good job against the mighty defense in the past, didn't he?
I just happen to think that these two, Vaccaro and Bayard, are going to make it extremely difficult.
He did take the Falcons to the Super Bowl with one of the most high-scoring offenses of all time.
And failed.
Well, no, he got 28 points against them. The Patriots' defense, well, it wasn't to blame for that. It was
But they got the ball back every time, didn't they?
Derrick Henry had over 370 yards over the last 2 games rushing. Who did he pass for the most yards in consecutive playoff games rushing as a running back? I'll give you the year. It was 2016. Silence on a podcast.
LeGarrette Blunt.
No.
Gurley.
No.
London-born Jay
No.
Ajayi.
I'll give you another clue. He was quite disappointing this year.
Devontae Freeman.
No.
Le'Veon Bell.
Yes. 337 yards across 2 games in 2016. That's the level that Derrick Henry's at, and he's sort of crept up on it. In his first 58 games in the NFL, he only had 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's only been the last 2 seasons. It's been immense. And
It's
even
not
then,
that,
it's even the
18 months.
latter part
Oh, yeah,
of the season.
that's why I was having a go at John on draft night, because
Yeah.
I just didn't see it. And but the thing is with running backs, sometimes they just, and this is the reason why there's only a few of them that ever become elite, because a lot of them have 2 or 3 year blocks where they, at some point in their career, whether it's right at the start or in the middle, where they seem to just take off, and then through injuries or burnout or just general fitness, they just lose it. And that's why they don't get paid big money, because they know that most of them aren't going to do it for 10 years.
Henry's timed his perfectly.
It'll be interesting to see what they value him at. I think that this is a team that needs to spend the money on him, but look at what's happened with some of the others recently.
Well, me and Jim were saying, we negotiated, didn't we? We got to a value of around 10 million
a year,
season.
3 years.
Yeah, if he's got any sense, he'd probably take it, because I think Le'Veon Bell has demonstrated you won't get.
Well, he's
Yeah,
not a
big
passing
movement.
back, is he?
Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, exactly. I think he'll take that as well.
If he gets offered.
Has anyone
He is the heaviest man to throw a touchdown. In the postseason.
really?
Yeah.
And what a shonky touchdown it was, because he jumped.
It was pretty bad.
And then he
wasn't
threw it on the way back down.
Hey, he threw it into triple coverage, and he
made a completion.
exactly.
It worked, yeah.
Lamar ain't doing
He has
that.
100%.
To be fair,
I mean, he did ignore a completely
Wide open.
wide open Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. Stood over to one side, completely unmarked. Brilliant.
He's nothing to that team now.
He isn't. Anyone ever heard of Caliph Raymond before?
not
Before he
Saturday
suddenly
night.
found a massive hole in the backfield?
No.
No, I'd never heard of him either. He's total for his career since 2016 is 10 receptions for 182 yards, and 50 of those were the other night when Tannehill just stood in the pocket all day long and waited for him to run down the field. I'd never heard of him.
They do very well in Tennessee in just getting players that aren't loved elsewhere. It's like you look at Logan Ryan. I think he's a fantastic
Look,
player.
Logan Ryan was loved in the Patriots. We just couldn't
I thought that
afford
was
to
like
keep
a
everybody.
YouTube star who had a fight or something.
That's
Logan
Logan Paul.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
I'd like to see him on a football field getting crushed. So, what do we think of Lamar in this game? Is this the way of unpicking Lamar, or is this just a bad game?
Lamar needs Mark Ingram.
Yeah, he does,
Yeah.
doesn't he?
The big turnaround was when Mark Ingram wasn't fit and he
Yep.
obviously didn't play. He needs a proper running back because then he's got all those play action options. You need if they're not going to actually run it with anyone else, then it's easier to predict.
This was his most turnovers in a game all season, I think. 2 interceptions and a fumble. Like last year, he had a fumble problem because he was running so much. This year, he really pulled it back in, but they with no Ingram. I couldn't believe how quickly the Tennessee D line was through the Ravens O line and at Lamar Jackson's
The other
feet.
thing that they forced him to throw to the edges as well. It wasn't Lamar likes to throw like down
Yeah.
the middle where the tight ends traditionally are. They were forcing it down the edges. Yeah, there was one circus catch from Hollywood Brown, which was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Well,
But
one of
apart
his first passes was, a perfectly well thrown ball that Mark Andrews
dropped.
dropped
Yeah.
for an interception.
Yeah.
So I think, like for me, it's interesting watching, because they are like young Cam Newtons, aren't they? They're taking what Cam Newton has done and evolving that to another level. But you just question whether there's an issue around that type of play in tight, pressurised situations. And then you look at someone like Brady and Breeze, and you look at how calm they are. You know, everything's calm. You know, you look at Jimmy G. You know, everything's calm all the time.
It's a playoff mentality, and Lamar doesn't have it.
That's what I mean.
Well,
it's just
that's 2 playoff losses for the Baltimore on the bounce now, the first opportunity.
Yeah.
So, you know, Lamar's yet to win a playoff game.
Yeah, is there a problem with that mentality
exactly.
in these high pressured situations?
Yeah, their
Because
mentality is tuck and run.
tuck and run,
He got
make
stuffed on 4th and inches twice.
make a big play all the
I
time.
didn't go near him.
You know,
If you had done, you just got it wrong.
but they're always looking for that Madden moment, aren't they? They're not looking to just drive it down the field, take the time off the clock, just manage the game.
Yeah, it's completely opposite of what the 49ers did.
So they're going to have big blowout wins, but they are going to have these times in playoff football where everything becomes tighter and it just doesn't work. So, and they're both young players, aren't they? So
The Chargers last year showed you how to play against Lamar Jackson, and I'm amazed more people haven't at least done that more often this season, because they absolutely stuffed him for
completely
most
agree.
of the game.
I think where he has improved versus last year is in the passing game.
Yeah.
Like last year, he was barely if he had 10 passes a game, that was impressive. This year, his accuracy has been that much better, so he can pass the ball.
We're talking about him like he wasn't any good. He had 350 passing yards and 100 rushing yards. He was the first ever quarterback to do that in a playoff game. So it's not like he wasn't really good. It's just his game didn't stand up to this defense. And
But most of his yards came in garbage time.
yeah, they did absolutely.
I mean, Blake Bortles looked great on paper.
there were some issues in the red zone as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, there were.
A lot of it was finishing these drives. That was a lot of the issue.
The Titans held up extremely well. They basically said, I mean, if you saw the Vrabel press conference, he said, we knew that Tucker would score every field goal, which meant we had to hold them to 5 or fewer field goals on the night. That's what their aim was, to hold him to, so what's that, 15 points. That was their whole plan. Can we hold them to 15 points and don't let them score any touchdowns? Well, and more or less, they pulled that off. That's exactly what they were aiming
Well,
to
they probably thought that Derrick Henry could himself score 14
points.
So then they only need one field goal to win, don't they? And then anything else is a bonus.
I really think that was the plan. The Jonnu Smith catch for the touchdown was pretty good as well.
He got one buttock down.
He did somehow manage to get something in. So we did between that and the Hollywood Brown catch, we had some good play in this game. But
I just love it's somebody's job to just repeatedly rewind something to see if a man's buttock hit the floor.
You'd love that job.
How much do they pay?
Buttock gate. Last time the Titans won consecutive playoff games?
2000.
No. Well, technically it was the 99 season. So yeah, I'll give you that one.
Thank you.
On my bit of paper it says 99, but you are
Come out of the box
he
now.
you are
needs to- he needs to
technically
break that
correct.
streak.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, let's celebrate that. You actually got that one right. Well done. But Jim and I were having this discussion at the weekend about how annoying it is to think it's after the new year. But you are correct. I'll give you that one. It was the 99 season, but in 2000. Who was the quarterback?
Steve McNair.
Oh, yeah. Who is very much not with us anymore. We were debating people who passed away before the podcast. Steve McNair, very much not with us now.
Good podcast, though.
It was an extremely good podcast.
The second AFC divisional game garnered much of the attention this weekend, and rightly so. Two talented young mobile quarterbacks, two head coaches desperate for postseason success on their CVs. This one started with an with a bang, ended with a bang. It was all bang as the Texans took on the Chiefs.
No. Let's go back a bit here, John. It started with an end, and it's all about the bang.
I write it for him. It's all there. It's written down.
I know it was nearly ended very quickly and then wasn't, but
Was it because I thought it didn't end with a bang? It ended with a whimper. Because the last 10 minutes, it was just the Chiefs.
so you disagreed with this in your head and then just mixed all the words up in your mouth.
We're all surprised Andy Reid didn't wet fart in the playoffs. All right.
He started with a horrible wet fart. The team were not prepared. They were not. They were cold.
They weren't rested, they were rusty.
Yeah. I mean, the Ravens were rusty, the Chiefs were rusty, but they managed to get themselves de-rusted. Is that a word?
I like it.
De-rusted?
I like it.
Okay.
They shook the rust off, is the
Do you
phrase.
shake rust off?
Apparently so.
Yeah, okay.
Or knock it off, I suppose.
You could knock it off.
I mean,
So they knocked one off in the playoffs, is what you're saying. Okay.
So Andy Reid's knocked one off.
Yes, excellent stuff. Well, anyway, talking about things no one wants to see.
well,
John, take control.
Please.
Is the difference here the fact that Mahomes really, if he wasn't injured, he should be MVP. He is still the most exciting quarterback in the league.
No.
But it's not. Last season's MVP is very good.
I think the case here is Patrick Mahomes is the best all-round quarterback currently. It's just he hasn't been fit. But he's a better thrower of the ball than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And he's almost as good a runner as Lamar Jackson. So he's the best quarterback.
Well, this is the first time we've seen him do any substantial running for about
6 or 7
8
weeks,
weeks, I reckon.
Yeah.
And he ran for something like 56 yards or something. He was their top rusher, wasn't he? Off the top of my head.
It's 53.
Was it? That's not bad, is it?
pretty good.
And he was the
and
top
I have
rusher.
no computer. I just know these things. But he was amazing, wasn't he? He was absolutely amazing.
He was brilliant. Once the rust of the first quarter had gone, he was,
and that wasn't even on him most of the time, was it?
It was drops,
Yeah,
a muff fumble.
muff punt, yeah.
You're right there. The issue there is it wasn't the Texans' defense that was just stopping them either. Like Griff said, there was a lot of drop passes. There was a muff punt. There was a completely blown coverage which allowed Kenny Stills to score the first touchdown. It was all mistakes by the Chiefs, which landed the Texans 24-0 up, and then the Chiefs kind of woke up, and suddenly it was like, bang, literally.
Last team to be 21 points down after the first quarter of a game and win?
in the playoffs or just in.
Well, it's actually the last in the playoffs or regular season, but yeah,
Was it the Patriots?
It is the Patriots. What year?
2004.
No, much more recent.
2014.
The Super Bowl against Atlanta?
No.
Was it last year?
No, it was 2011.
Oh.
Close though, but the fact that you
Who was
came up
that
with so
against? Steelers?
I can't remember off the top of my head. But the fact that you came up with so many different years it could have been tells you how many times they've been behind like that. But
well,
it's a rarity. 2011 was the last time any team.
I still think there was one extremely poor decision in this game, which really
a couple of poor decisions.
The Bill O'Brien not going for it on 4th and inches.
Well,
touchdown.
that was later on, but one of the things that really helped that momentum shift. So, what was really important in this game was to, once they started conceding points to this Chiefs team, they had to reset and go, right, this isn't going to be a blowout. We're in a proper game now, and then trying to do a fake punt from your own 30-yard line just because you were 24-7 up was madness, absolute madness. And then they gave a turnover straight away afterwards, and before you knew it, it was 24-21. It was crazy.
They'd messed up the earlier 4th down, hadn't they? Because they should have gone for the 4th down
When they took the
When they
field
took the
goal,
field goal.
and they should have kept their foot down
they
on the
messed
gas.
that one
Yeah,
up. They wanted to go for it on this one, and they were
And do you know what?
basically they were reticent when they should have been when they should have gone for it, and then when they should have
been a bit more conservative.
they fucked it up.
Yeah.
Do you know Sorensen? Is it Daniel
Ted
Sorensen?
Sorensen.
Yeah.
Daniel Sorensen?
Yes, Daniel Sorensen.
It was the only player on the Chiefs who sniffed out the fake punt. If you watch the video back, everybody goes for punt block, and he just stands up and is like, "No!" and runs. And he made 2 brilliant tackles in this game. Both of them forced fumbles.
He made quite a few tackles actually.
He was just immense, and that, like Gary said, shifted the whole momentum. And once they had scored 3 touchdowns, we all said, this is done. The Chiefs are just going to roll them over. They scored. They're the first team ever to score on 7 consecutive drives to score touchdowns in the playoffs.
Yeah.
First team ever. That's insane. The Texans couldn't stop them. And this Texans secondary has been poor all season, and it just was a disaster. What's his name? Johnson. Is it Laney Johnson?
Lonnie Johnson.
Lonnie Johnson. They dropped him halfway through the year. They've had so many injuries, they had to bring him back, and he just got roasted time and time again by Kelsey. This is crazy. It's like at one point they had 3 players on Kelsey, and he just stood there and grabbed the ball and scored a touchdown, and we were like, it's nuts.
They never really they had 3 players around him.
Because he was
No
in
one on
almost like a Bermuda Triangle
Yeah.
of Texan players. They were sort of on him,
like
but
a dissolution of responsibility.
Yeah.
It was zone, wasn't it?
it wasn't even that. They were closer than it should have been. They were in zone coverage. No one wanted to pick him up, and quite rightly so. He's a beast of a player. But he started the game with a really easy drop as well, and
That led to a touchdown.
that led to a touchdown. And then after that, he was just immense. He finished the game with 10 receptions, 134 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
3 touchdowns in 1 quarter. First player in the Super Bowl era to have 3 receiving touchdowns in one quarter.
And,
wasn't it inside 4 minutes as well? They scored
They scored 3 in 3 minutes 24 seconds. But when all said and done, like looking back over the Texans playoffs, they've only really played in 2 quarters because they only really showed up in the last quarter of the wildcard game against the Bills, and the Bills slightly imploded, and the first quarter against the Chiefs, and they were outscored. Take away, that first quarter and that field goal, they were outscored 51-7 in 3 quarters of football,
which is absolutely insane. Do you know the Texans have never won consecutive playoff games? They've never done it. They've been in existence since 2001, and this is why they've never had success, because they can't string it together in the postseason.
And they just won't with kind of decision making. Bill O'Brien.
They can't have won the division very often though. Once or twice.
They've won it 6 times, I think, in their history.
Since
They've won it 4 out of the last 7, haven't they?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think they'd won it twice before that when they had Matt Sharp.
Are they normally just beaten up by the end of the season because all their defensive players always get
They
injured?
never get the bye, and then they
That's
quite often go. But it's like the other year, they ended the season really well, didn't they? With the Brian Hoyer year, we were saying about it during the game. They ended the season brilliantly, went into the playoffs and got rolled 30-0 by the Chiefs.
I think the thing that they're in the same division as the Colts, who have been.
Yeah, we've had Andrew Luck playing for them. Then they've faced the Jags defense for the last couple of years when they were good. Titans haven't exactly been a massive problem for them, but it's the whole division has fluctuated around. But
the last 2 times they've got to the playoffs as well, it's been without Watt, and he was there, but he's not.
He wasn't as effective as he was in the wild card.
He wasn't fit, was he?
No.
He was proper blowing.
He was gassed, yeah.
It makes as much as Sherman is your guy's star player on defense, he's theirs. It's not good for them. But
can this Texans team win with Bill O'Brien being GM and head coach?
No.
And apparently they're not bringing in a GM.
Apparently not. He's just turning himself into the Belichick of the Texans.
I think the thing, the issue with the Texans is their owner Bill McNair died. His son's only just taken over, and Bill O'Brien's he's a
weird chin though.
Yeah, obviously he's a big personality in Houston, and it's difficult for a new owner who hasn't got a big GM there to call the shots to kind of make decisions like that.
I think Bill O'Brien's a really good coach, but every year he makes 3 or 4 awful decisions where they blow games. Now, he will probably get better at managing that.
But the biggest issue now going forward is like Deshaun Watson was sacked 12 times in 2 playoff games, and they made that massive trade for Larry Tunsil. They've given up 2 first-round picks and a number of other picks. They haven't got that many picks in the draft. They need to build that the rest of the offensive line.
And they need a secondary. The secondary is what's killed them in this game. So they've got a lot of rebuilding to do.
Yeah, they could have done with Matthew, who was on the other side.
Well, they didn't pay him. They've actually got a decent amount of salary cap to burn. They could have paid him, but
he has been great.
He's been awesome with the Chiefs.
Yeah, apparently he wanted to play on a team that he felt was Super Bowl contenders before he's too old, and he didn't feel the Texans were. And he's right. But this is also a matchup we should see for several years to come, because Watson and Mahomes are brilliant. Watson wasn't at fault in this game, was he? He's done as well as almost any other player against the Chiefs this season. His yards and things were fantastic. 31 of 52 for nearly 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, Watson's been fantastic.
He's brilliant.
If Lamar and Mahomes are top of the tree, Watson's in the next category down, and it's not far.
I think they are the future. It's just,
of course they are.
The thing is, we've already seen Mahomes get 1 knee injury, and that changed the way he played football. Yeah. But he could still play. The
Watson's
issue,
had a big injury in the past.
Big injury. So that's probably made him. He's been less of a runner this year than he has some of the other years.
So you want me to tear Lamar Jackson's ACL? Is what you're telling me?
Well, at some point, Lamar's going to get hit.
When Lamar gets injured, that's the big question: is whether when that option's taken away from him, whether he can still be elite in the same bracket. If he has to pass 35 times a game, can he match these others?
Currently, you say no.
But whilst he can run, it doesn't make any difference. But we've seen it with Cam Newton. He's had to, as he's got older, he's had to pass the ball more. And after he's come back from injuries, and now he's missed a season pretty much. So they're going to be. It's going to be interesting to watch this develop, because there's also going to be other players that come in to the league that are pocket passers. And you will see a contrast, because there is so many old quarterbacks. Over the next 5 years, you're going to see all sorts of rivalries form, aren't you?
Yeah.
AFC rivalries, where people choose their franchise quarterback. Because Goff, you could argue, is very much in the Brady and Breeze kind of mould. Garoppolo's only 28. Goff must be, 26. These other players are like 24. You've got Baker as well, who's a pocket passer, really. He's more of a Flacco mould. But
A pocket interception thrower.
well, I said he's more like Flacco, but there's all sorts of different types of new quarterbacks coming into the league that it's going to develop, I think, over the next 3 to 5 years and become very interesting again.
You're right. There's definitely a transition. You've got, like you say, Brady, Breeze, Roethlisberger, Eli Manning,
Rivers,
Old man Rivers.
all going or gone to an extent. Manning, especially, and now you've got kind of a whole swath of kind of
Colton
new.
could be gone.
Yeah, you got a whole load
loads.
of new quarterbacks coming in. It's going to be really exciting, and that's not including the quarterbacks that have come out in the draft this year.
I mean,
We should mention Damian Williams, who had a brilliant game in terms of touchdowns.
Yeah,
he's
I
one
mean-
of only 4 players in the history of football to have 3 touchdowns in a playoff game.
He's another one of those players who I drafted with my fantasy team and had high hopes and done nothing until I dropped him, and they got in the playoffs. Now he's started doing stuff.
He is tied with one other running back for the most scrimmage touchdowns in the postseason since 2016. Do you want to guess who it is?
Since 2016.
Including and from 2016 to this year. So 2015 season to 2019 season for clarity. Which other running back and Damian Williams? They have 16 touchdowns from scrimmage in the postseason.
LeGarrette Blunt.
Nope, but it is a Patriots player.
Dion Lewis.
No.
White.
Yes,
Yeah,
James
that's
White.
what I would-
James White.
But he's not a running back, so that's not a fair comparison.
Well, that may be true, but he's classed as one. And for the sake of asking it, because it's on the
How
list,
many of those were rushing touchdowns?
3, I think. It wasn't many.
That's what I mean.
Who the hell is Blake Bell?
He's the backup tight end to
Because Kelsey got injured didn't
Yeah.
he, in the game, but he's okay apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
But yeah, never heard of
looked
Blake
very
Bell
similar with his helmet on. to
Yeah,
Kelsey.
That is random Madden name generator
Blake Bell.
in action there, isn't it?
I had not heard of him. I had no idea who he was. But
It's
hey,
because Kelsey very rarely gets injured.
yeah,
No, fair enough. Well, let's move on to the final divisional game, which was the
Nobody
only.
saw because it was up late.
I saw most of it. By the time I dropped Jim off home from here, and it was nearly half time. But
Thanks.
I'd seen the rest of it, and
Well-
this was good in the second half.
Yeah, it was a nail-biter. A Hawks 23, Packers 28. Yeah, I mean, let's get it out there now. Aaron Jones is elite, right?
Aaron Jones is elite this season. Yeah, absolutely.
He is.
He's fantastic.
But
and Wilson's played at
He's still got
Lambeau.
under 100 yards, but he is elite.
Wilson's played at Lambeau Field 4 times. It's the only stadium where he's played more than twice and not won a game.
And he went to college around there, so you'd think he could play in the cold.
Yeah, but apparently, well, in all fairness, he did play well in
But
the cold.
Rodgers has only lost something like 5 out of 28 games that were under 0 degrees.
Yeah, it wasn't many. Might not have even been that many. Might have been 3. I think.
3,
It's ridiculous.
It's very few.
Of course. And this was, I think, this was one of Aaron Rodgers' best games of the season.
I was just about to say
He
that.
was
actually.
fantastic.
He looked really good
Yeah.
on Sunday night. Probably the best I've seen him play for a long time.
probably the best since the first half of the season.
Oh, easily,
The first half, he had some really good games. The first half of the season.
We ought to mention. I know this was the end of the game, but I think it was the pass to Jimmy Graham that secured the necessary first down to kill the clock. Was it short?
Well,
it looked short to me.
Well, there's a lot. I saw a lot of arguments about this. Obviously, the yellow line we see on TV is not. That's just for us.
That's just for it's
That's
not the official.
It's not real, is it? It's,
No, no.
It's just to help us understand the game as it goes on. So the officials are saying they made it. It's one of those. If it was called short, it would have been overruled. They called it. So you're talking, half a yard in it, and the officials are there to make a judgment call. They made a judgment call. They probably went for the home team a little bit, but that's why you get home advantage, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
pretty
think that's exactly what it was. I think it was home field advantage.
I always laugh though when you think it's $1 billion sport.
And some
And then-
old men get
and
to
it's
choose.
an old man just
It's a
there.
fair point. I mean, they have goal line technology in our football Premier League. Why can't they have that in the NFL?
Let's not bring VAR into anything else.
I
it's not,
like
that's
it
not
how it
VAR,
is.
is it?
It's very difficult to understand when the ball stops because
Yeah.
if you think about, sometimes you get forward progression. Sometimes they whistle a play dead and then they keep pushing.
No, I think they could figure something out.
Well, I think
you're making excuses
it's
for them.
unnecessary.
I think it's
unnecessary technology.
Plus, it's
And at
long
the end
enough
of the-
as it is as a game.
At the
isn't
end
it?
of the day, if you go 21-0 down or whatever, or 21-3 down, whatever it was, and you lose by, a few inches, well, then it's not on the refs, is it?
No, absolutely, it's not. No, you're quite right. This was a poor
Plus,
first
it's the
half from
Seahawks, and I don't like the Seahawks, and they haven't been a very good team all season, so it's a pointless argument. The better team won.
Well, I completely agree with that.
So
Yeah.
the Seahawks and Pete Carroll, he was complaining about
Packers
the Niners
have-
game as well. Still, he just needs to shut his face.
I mean, the Seahawks. The Seahawks have got one player on their team effectively, and that's Russell Wilson, and he has pulled that.
Lockett had a great game.
Yeah, but who's
Lockett's
passing the
great.
ball to him?
Yeah, no, I agree. But 9 receptions for 136 yards and a touchdown. I mean, it didn't touch Devontae Adams, 8 for 160 and 2. By the way, the Packers have never lost a game when he scored 2 touchdowns.
By the way, what other receivers made decent receptions?
None. So if
But how many teams lose a game when one of their wide receivers has 2 touchdowns?
plenty, as it turns out.
I'm sure the Giants do.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Odell Beckham
Slayton.
scored 2 touchdowns in a lot of games for you guys.
Slayton had a great season.
Yeah.
We've been pony, yeah.
Golden Tate.
The Browns lose a lot when Landry scores as well.
All right, I'll get back in my box. Sorry.
That's your original point. If you take
We're right about Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I mean,
just take
It's
it.
elite. If you take Devontae Adams out,
Yay.
you've got Geronimo Allison and Marcus Valdez-Scantling. Are the only other wide receivers who made receptions.
Alan
2
Lazard
catches.
had no
He had
catches.
nothing. Didn't even have any targets.
Nope.
And then you've got Jimmy Graham, who had 49 yards off free catches. That's if Devontae Adams goes down injured, that's a real worry for any Packers team. 'Cause
This is 2
completely
teams
leaning on that.
that
on
haven't
player.
surrounded their
Yeah.
elite quarterback with enough talent.
Yeah,
The Packers are one. I mean, why on earth did they let Cobb go?
yeah.
He played well this season for Cowboys, and
It's just another experienced head in that
Yeah,
receiving.
I think it might
corps,
be to
isn't
do with money.
maybe, but
then who
but
the-
spend the money.
They've spent a lot of money on their defense. in
Yeah,
this
they
last
have.
Postseason, and they spend a lot of money on Aaron Rodgers. Obviously,
Yeah.
So then once you pay a running back and you pay Devontae Adams, then you have to put some kind of
I thought of you
stuff
when-
around him.
after his post-game interview where he opened it
I
by
did as
saying,
well.
"I will settle down with a glass of scotch and think about this game." And I thought, he said that in 7 post-game interviews this season. That's been his line in the.
Well, I know that everyone thinks we're taking the mickey, but clearly.
You like
Green
scotch?
Bay isn't the most interesting place to live in the world. Yeah, it's cold a lot. I'm sure he's got a hip flask. That's all we've been saying.
If I had to live in Wisconsin, I'd probably be a functioning alcoholic as well.
Probably not functioning.
Yeah.
The thing with
Probably
Devontae
a bit on
Adams,
meth or something.
as someone who's had him in fantasy, he hasn't been available a lot this year. He is very fresh for the playoffs, and that really does help. If you're only going to have one receiver, have him be elite and fresh and
absolutely.
Definitely.
against some beat up defenses. And Seattle only ever win when the defense is good, and the defense ain't good enough.
No, it's not.
No, they need some big. Well, I've written here how much turnover is required on that roster. I reckon
A
on the
lot.
defense, there's probably 8 to 10 players of not coming back.
Well,
It's just not good enough.
it always reminds me that the Super Bowl they won. What score was it before the offense got a touchdown? The defense got them to 22-0.
That was against Carolina, wasn't it?
Denver.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean,
When they've won stuff, it's the defense.
Yeah, but to be fair, the Denver Broncos center
No,
got them 7 straight off the bat.
Yeah, that's fine. But when it's all on the defense,
I think the thing is,
Yeah.
like,
Russell Wilson's brilliant. He doesn't. It's not on him to win the game. It's on the Seattle.
We're all
defense.
unanimous. The Seahawks are pretty pony.
No one
Yeah.
likes them
Pete-
around this table. I know, but
Pete Carroll wants to build a team based on defense and running the ball, and that's all well and good. But then you've got a quarterback who's brilliant at passing the ball.
yeah,
So either
They've been a bit
one
unlucky.
thing has to change. Either he has to change the mentality and move away from that very much kind of run-dominated game, or they need to get a new quarterback.
They've been unlucky with the running backs all getting injured, though.
oh yeah.
But
No,
in
exactly.
in
They
this
finally
game,
found a good one in Chris Carson after years of
Did
drops.
they though? Did they? What did he? How many did he run for this? Like 650, 700 yards?
He gets a lot. He gets a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, he was decent.
And Rashad Penny was beginning to look decent.
Yeah, it's run by committee.
bringing Marshawn Lynch back.
I'm sure there's been podcasts where Carson has been described as disappointing this year.
But he's a fumble machine.
He's been up and down. He's a
point.
fumble machine. But Marshawn Lynch, 12 carries for 26 yards, won't get it done. But he has had 4 touchdowns in 2 games, which massively impressive. You know, it puts him in some great company.
William the Fridge Perry also got lots of touchdowns by being big, and we had to run at defensive lines.
But he has the 4th most rushing touchdowns in NFL history now, Marshawn Lynch.
Great. He was great.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
just saying,
they weren't
great.
wrong to bring him back, but it didn't solve the problem because he can't pick up the yards. He can only pick up touchdowns.
Marshawn
he can't
Lynch,
get yards.
he won't want to do a pre-season.
He won't come back.
The problem is, yes, he's great on the goal line. It's like LeGarrette Blount.
Yeah.
Brilliant on the goal line. Yes, have a player like that for goal line situations, but they need to be generating yards in the middle of the field.
Well, don't worry. Travis Homer had 3 carries for 13 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but he won't have a contract.
Yeah, that's very true.
I think the 2 best teams in the NFC in the end, they were both the top seeds, weren't they? 1 and 2 seeds in the end.
Yeah.
Both 13 and 3 teams. The Green Bay Packers did it quite quietly because their division was in the end a bit of a walkover.
But how much credit are we not giving to Matt LaFleur? Because I haven't heard his name mentioned that much this season.
Well, Rodgers and Matt LaFleur are having a bit of a love-in at the moment, aren't they? Because they just keep going, it's all on him. No,
but let's not forget he was a rookie coach, and we all were like, don't know about that. He once rubbed shoulders with Sean McVay.
Of the McVay light,
and he was the offensive coordinator with the Titans, and
that put a lot of people head scratching.
Yeah, exactly. They were. I mean, even now they don't exactly set the world alight when it comes to offensive play.
Yeah, but I think he's just really got on the same page as Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's been around kind of harmony and just one approach, and giving Rodgers freedom and saying, right, here are 3 plays that we can run from this formation. You see what you see, and you make the call. I think they're doing a lot of that. I think a lot of the decisions are being made on the field. So I think he's being given options. This is your personnel. This is how we're lining up. This is the looks you might get from defence. You choose. You look at the field and you choose. And I think because of that, a lot of the so he believes in it, and I think they've just got them 2 lined up, and I think that's made a big difference to that team.
Well, shall we leave what's happened in the past and let's talk about what's going to happen this weekend? So, the Titans take on the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Care to pick a winner?
Chiefs. Straight away. And I know people are going to go on about how well the Titans have done, but the Chiefs at Arrowhead, I think this is the year with no Patriots. It's got to be the Chiefs.
You would say that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are the best coach-quarterback combo left, right?
Yes.
Yep. Like in terms of experience. I mean, Shanahan's a great coach, but Garoppolo's not experienced enough. Between
to be fair, he's got more Super Bowl rings than playoff games.
Yes, he does. He does. But you've got to hand it to Andy Reid. If he's going to win, it's this year.
He has to win this year.
That said, I'm really tempted to stick with the Titans because I picked them all the way through.
I'm going to guess for another huge game for Henry. Titans to score 30 points. I'd still think the Chiefs are going to do more than that. I think they're going to. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah,
great
I think
game.
the Titans' defense is good, but it's not good enough because the Chiefs can just, as they showed on Sunday, they can just score at will.
This Titans defense is so much better than the Texans defense.
But they've done it.
They've done it against lots of other teams
as well.
And I know the Titans have beaten the Chiefs this year, but this is playoff football. I would love to see, if it wasn't the 49ers in the NFC, I would love to see Andy Reid win a Super Bowl because I think he is a Hall of Fame coach.
Oh yeah.
And he's, there are certain things where he's revolutionised the game, and I want to see him win that Super Bowl just to top it off his career. So I'm going to back the Chiefs.
Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame playoff choker. So I'm going to go with the Titans because Andy Reid will game manage himself into a defeat.
I haven't actually picked, but I'm just going to ride with the Titans because I can. I think this could be an awesome matchup.
Yeah.
And I think Bayard and Vaccaro, if there's a matchup that Mahomes didn't want, it's those two because if they get pressure on him like they did with Lamar, he will get picked off by those two. But the Chiefs are. Let me get this out there. The Chiefs are by far the better team. It just. I don't know. It just feels like
going into it, the Ravens were the better team.
Yeah. So
I
just
think
think
the Titans face a chance. Have got a chance.
I think they've got a really good chance. I'm just going to back them because I feel like I've backed them through.
I think the Chiefs can win in so many different ways compared to the Ravens.
Yeah,
though. That's the thing. They've got so many different looks.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, but I'm just going to ride with them because I feel like I should. Like you told me the other week, I'd had too many boys, too many players in the game, so I'll just stick with the one I've got. That seems fair, right?
Well, if you throw enough darts, one of them
Exactly,
hit.
yeah, absolutely.
The stop clock is right twice a day.
Yeah.
Who would have thought the Tannehill dart would be the one?
Well, I don't know.
But yeah, okay. Well, let's move on to the NFC, where Packers take on the 49ers in Santa Clara.
I assume that.
No, I want to hear these two first. I want to hear Jim and I want to hear Gary.
I'm not going till last because I haven't decided.
No. Pressure's on.
I've decided.
Jim thinks that Niners going to win easily.
I think. No, I don't think it's going to be easy.
That's what he told me.
After our 38-7 win in the season.
No, I think. Well, yeah, but playoff football is completely different. But I do think they'll win. I think what is really interesting is the Mike Pettin, the defensive coordinator for the Packers, against Kyle Shanahan, the coach for 49ers. They both used to work together at Cleveland, where Pettin was Shanahan's boss. That kind of matchup, whilst I think Pettin has been great for the Green Bay Packers defense, and the Packers defense has been much, much better this year than it's been for many, many a year. I just think Shanahan's scheming will, in the end, win out. And I think that defensive line still fit, still got D Ford playing, still going to have Quan Alexander. Only one receiver that's worth paying too much attention to. I just think the 49ers defense will win out.
So, Gary, get off the fence.
Well, for me, my concern is a bit like the Rugby World Cup. England just peaked slightly too early and they had their big game. And my concern is our first playoff game since 2014 and we were amazing and it was so much calmer than I expected it to be. And I've just got this really horrible feeling that we're not quite ready. And if we're not quite ready, I'd rather we didn't have a Super Bowl hangover and we just continued to build. So I'm going to not get my hopes up and say that the Packers just beat us. Rodgers manages the game slightly better.
4 inches.
I feel the hype machine is very much in San Francisco currently. Much like the hype machine left Baltimore this week and is now firmly stationed in San Francisco. And I feel it will leave on its way to Wisconsin or Miami to be looked after by Wisconsin.
I'm guessing after a very tight game, celebratory scotches in Green Bay. And I don't know why, because I think the 49ers are better in every way, apart from Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams.
I think I am with Gary. I think the Niners have peaked. This is an awful one to call. For me, it comes down to which quarterback would you rather have? Because Aaron Jones is playing really well. Tevin Coleman's playing really well. There's not masses to choose from on the defense. The Niners' defense is a bit better, but
come on, I'm saying,
but it is better.
Oh,
but Aaron Rodgers is a much better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo at the moment. So I think those two things sort of weigh each other out. And then it comes down to which of these coaching minds do you think can do it? And I don't know. I'm going to take Green Bay because I think Aaron Rodgers must win another Super Bowl before his career is over. So I'm surprised that we're all more or less leaning in that direction, with the exception of Jim.
I'm staying true.
I think you should. I don't know.
Faithful
do you know
then,
what? I want
now.
to face this.
49ers are favourites.
I don't know whether we're watching this with our one and only Packers supporting friend, because I don't know who I'd rather see crying most at the Super Bowl when they lose to the Titans.
The thing is...
Yeah, but the Tannehill can't win in Miami, can he? So
No,
the
that's very
Titans will
true.
not win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's very true.
Duncan's he isn't watching the Super Bowl with us, is he?
No, but he is watching the NFC Championship game with us if we're all together. So,
I'm allowed to the bar.
yeah, if you're allowed to the bar. So I don't know. I'm going to stick with the Packers because I just think this could be Aaron Rodgers this year. This is screaming out for Rodgers to say, "Look how good I still am."
It just it's like the momentum of it all. I don't know, but yeah.
There's just this thing in the NFL. It's like death taxes, and the team you feel should get there doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think the team you feel should get there often does.
No, the Aaron Smith Chiefs let me down when Mariota passed to himself. The Rams let me down last year. What did I say?
You said Aaron.
Aaron Smith.
Yeah, he was there as well.
Well,
I'm sure he was in the crowd, yeah.
49ers have got an extra day off and they don't have to travel as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that could be a factor.
I think Gary's talking himself
He
into
is.
it.
He's desperately.
Well, I know it's so close. That's the thing.
He wants to pick
It
the
is
Niners.
so close.
Aaron,
pick the Niners.
Aaron Rodgers is 1-3 against the 49ers on the road.
He is.
Aaron Rodgers going to San Francisco as well after they passed him
Yeah.
over in 2005.
He might pop in and see his mum. You never
You
know.
never know.
Okay, away from the various degrees of playoff success, there have been coach hires aplenty. So let's see what we'll make of them and who's left out in the cold. Of course, we covered some of these last week. But should we deep dive into Stefanski to the Browns?
Shouldn't take us long.
What a fuck up again, is my opinion.
So, basically, Daniels went there. The Patriots defensive coordinator went there and said,
McDaniels.
McDaniels, and said, I want to do.
To be fair, they probably needed Paul Daniels.
Paul
They
Daniels,
need a magician.
Yep. And he said, I want to do a complete shake-up from the top down. I don't want this guy. I don't want this guy. I think your whole organisation needs an overhaul. And if you let me do that, I'll come and work for you. And the Browns said, no thanks. We'll take Kevin Stefanski, who's already agreed to work with all the other existing things we have in place, which don't work.
And we know he can't beat Salah at the Niners anyway.
Yeah.
So
the crazy thing is, he's had just over a year's experience as an offensive coordinator, and let's be honest, that offensive plan was pretty terrible on Saturday. But also, he's got Gary Kubiak working above him, who, whenever Mike Zimmer is interviewed and is asked about the offense of the Vikings, always says, "Yeah, Kubiak's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Never mentions Stefanski. So you got to think about how much is Kubiak and how much is Stefanski. The other thing is with John Dorsey also sacked by Cleveland. The man leading the hiring search has been Paul DePodesta, who's come from baseball. He's the character he's the person who Jonah Hill's character was based off in the film Moneyball. We've not seen it. Go see it. It's a good film, even better book. So it's all very analytic and strategy based. And rumour has it that Kevin Stefanski is going to have to show the analytics team the game plan for the upcoming game in the weekend every Friday to get their seal of approval that is the right game plan.
He's a yes man.
Exactly.
He's just a yes man.
The yes man that John Dorsey hired, Freddie Kitchens, was fired. They've now got rid of John Dorsey. They interviewed Stefanski last year. DePodesta liked him, couldn't hire him. He's just gone back to the well, hired him, and they've got another yes man. And realistically, if you're Beckham, if you're Landry, if you're Baker Mayfield, if you're Myles Garrett, if you're Denzel Ward, are you going to be that impressed with Kevin Stefanski walking through the door?
I'm just going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here.
Don't, Paul, don't.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. So, in 2000, possibly 1999, I don't know anymore. At some point near the turn of the century, Robert Kraft wanted a guy who was Bill Parcells' assistant, was shit at media.
No, I disagree with that entirely. Bill Belichick had a number of seasons working with Bill Parcells.
3 or 4 years at the Browns.
Won
And
2
2
Super Bowls rings,
yeah.
was in charge of one of the greatest defenses the league's ever seen.
But Robert Kraft wanted his man, and everybody told him it was madness.
I'm not. See, this is the thing, right? There are certain things like the Matt
By the
LaFleur
way,
hire
it's a
this time last
shit
year.
hire.
Yeah.
The Matt LaFleur hire, I didn't think anything of, and the Zach Taylor hire, I didn't think anything of. And one's come off really well, and one's come off terribly.
One's got a good team, one's got a bad
I was going to
team.
say, you go to Green Bay,
Yeah.
and
You've got
a foundation, and you can bring in a fresh approach. That was probably needed after like 13 years of Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
And then you go to Cleveland, which needs stability rather than constant churn and them just making things up as they go along. And you go and get someone completely unproven, which is what they always do.
Yeah, what they needed was Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So
interviewed
I
him
was
like once last year and twice this year and didn't manage to get him.
completely unenamored by Mike McCarthy goes to Cowboys. I thought that was just a like for like, Garrett for McCarthy, whatever.
Yep.
Mike McCarthy to the Browns, I'd be, that's the right thing. That was the right thing to do.
Although, if you're Matt McCarthy, he's made the right decision
Oh,
because
yeah.
you go to the Cowboys. You don't go-
definitely.
The Browns, one day someone's going to turn it around.
But what McDaniel said was absolutely right. They need to bring in someone. Like McDaniels is coming from a team he's been to X amount of Super Bowls in the last 10 years. He's been the offensive coordinator. He's got head coach experience. He took Denver Broncos, led by Tim Tebow, to the fucking playoffs. It's not won a playoff game against the Steelers. And you turn a coach down that's got that much experience who says, this is how it should be done. And they're like, do you know what? No, we know better. And no, you don't, because you've done cool for the last 10 years.
Do you think they've looked at the Niners and gone, that's the way forward? We need a young coach with a GM he gets on with, because they're saying that Peyton's going to come, or Patton, whatever you want to pronounce it, is going to come from the Vikings, potentially. Either him or Berry, isn't it? An executive called someone Berry.
Yeah.
Andrew Berry, that's it.
There's a chance they've looked at that and see that's a template, but that doesn't often pay off.
The Colts.
Yeah, he's an executive, I think, at the Colts.
Yeah, he's already said no.
But I think they're saying that it's going to be Patton, and apparently he's only ever interviewed for a couple of jobs. So to try and get him out of the Vikings, apparently he gets on very well with Stefanski. So whether they're just all about that partnership, I don't know.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. That partnership has been really successful for 49ers, and it's as we're seeing this season, it's probably a good model to follow. But I feel like they've just hired the wrong head coach.
Do you think Beckham will be happy with this long-term approach?
No, don't.
You want success now? Here's an unproven coach.
Yeah,
there was a huge list of coaches. 3 that I would have had ahead were Mike McCarthy for the discipline that he would bring in, McDaniels because he's a winner, and then, like I said last week, and everybody shouted it down, I'd have had Marvin Lewis because he's turned one team in this division around.
It's really
I would have Jim Schwartz on that.
It's
as well.
really interesting. You've got Rule, who's already gone out and got Coughlin to be an advisor. Have you seen that?
No, I hadn't seen that, no.
So Coughlin is going to advise him at the start of the season around setting up his back room, what staff to have. This has all already happened because he's come from college. He only worked in the NFL for like a season and a half.
Yeah.
So actually, to align him to the NFL, they've gone out and hired him, Coughlin, just as an advisor.
Yeah, which is a great thing to do.
So I don't know. Like, it's the Browns. We'll just wait and see. It'll show promise for 3 weeks.
But to think about it, so you're right. It's a really interesting, great thing to do. But David Tepper's been in charge of the Carolina Panthers for now 2 years. And what he's done in terms of bringing in Matt Rule and bringing him in an advisor, figuring out who he wants and going after him and signing him, he's done that after 2 years, figuring out the Haslams have owned the Browns for longer, 8-10 years, and they've had 9 coaches, X amount of GMs.
But I think you're forgetting they're idiots.
Well, yes, that's my point.
The best thing about this Stefanski hire is we get to laugh at the Browns again next season. What did they go this year? 8-8?
No, 7-9.
7-9.
Yeah, but to be honest, if you'd have said to a Browns fan 2 years ago, you're going to go 7-9, that's a success.
Possibly, yeah.
I think it might be 6-10.
They might have been
They'd have taken 6-10 2 years ago.
Yeah, but they didn't go and get.
After this summer, they wouldn't have.
Yeah, everyone was talking about them being a Super Bowl contender.
2 years ago, they didn't have OBJ, they didn't have Chubb, they didn't have
Landry.
Garrett, they didn't have Landry,
DeShone Kaiser,
they didn't have Baker Mayfield.
Oh, they did have DeShone Kaiser.
If you give fans Chubb, they expect big things. So
the other place I think where it'll be really interesting to watch next year, the start of the season, and how it develops is the Rams, because obviously they've had a bad year, and Wade Phillips is obviously gone now. Bones has gone as well, special teams coach.
Has he gone to the Cowboys?
He has gone to the
Cowboys.
Cowboys.
Gone to the Cowboys, yes.
And
it's a great pickup for them.
Brilliant pickup.
Because their special teams have been shonky for years.
And that's something that Jerry Jones called out in the game against the Patriots, wasn't it?
It
Where
was
he said
6-10 for the Browns, by the way.
Yeah.
He said that Patriots special teams is immense, and that's an area that we were lacking.
And McVay has gone and got himself an offensive coordinator as well, hasn't he? Because he said he has been spread too thin. So he's gone out and got himself defensive coordinator Brandon Staley and offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell.
Well, Kevin O'Connell was a quarterback, wasn't he, for years? I think he was on the Patriots as like a second string.
They also lost their running back coach as well, I believe. At the Rams.
There's been a lot of turnover, but there needed to be. Then something had to give there. I was just looking at the Browns. They finished 6-10. 3 Pro Bowlers they had. Do you want to name the 3 Browns Pro Bowlers?
Denzel Ward,
Jarvis Landry,
Chubb.
Yes, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb, one other. Never in a million years.
Baker.
Not a chance.
Is it
the kicker?
Nope.
the O-line? The punter?
The Scottish punter?
No, not the punter. It was somebody off the O-line, yes.
What?
It was guard Joel Bitonio.
Oh, he's well regarded.
Well, apparently
He's
so.
got it. He done a shit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the first thing they need to fix is that O-line because the rest of the team still is quality. That O-line needs desperate attention.
Look, it's way too early to say it, but you'd say 6-10 is probably a realistic expectation for next season now.
It is now, yeah.
You know, that's it. And that a team with this much talent should be looking at a 10-win season as a minimum.
And you've got to wonder if they're another 6-10 year. How long do those stars stay around?
Well,
won't.
nobody else in that division will be as bad next year.
Odell
either.
probably won't be there when we start the season. He will be pushing
Yeah,
for a move.
the Bengals are going to get better, clearly.
The Steelers.
The star receivers on their team, OBJ, how many winning seasons has he had? 2? He's been
One.
playing-
You're the
he's been
Giants
playing
fan.
He's been playing for the
One.
Giants for played them 5 years.
2014, we drafted him, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he wins. He was at playoffs. Then he's had. We've had.
You've had
3
one
bad years.
You had one playoff season with him.
One playoff season. He's probably had. Let's be realistic. 2 winning seasons. Landry's come from Miami. How many winning seasons has he had? The whole team, even their stars, are mired in failure.
It's very true.
But is that not going to make them more desperate to win at the Browns and play and try their hardest and play very well, which I can't imagine Beckham being like that, or they're going to be desperate to go somewhere where they can win. And we've talked about Matthew earlier, where he didn't want to stay at the Texans. He went to Chiefs to be in a winning side. Does Landry and Beckham go, I can't do this again. I've got a very limited time period.
That is it.
I need to go somewhere to win.
I don't know who can afford them, but
The Colts.
The Colts.
Well,
The Colts have got a load of salary. Imagine Beckham with the Colts.
Well,
Just imagine the Colts with a quarterback that's
I think
slightly better.
the Colts are all about team as well, aren't they? So they'd probably go for, if you could go for anyone, you go for Landry.
Yes.
I don't know where Beckham goes, if he goes anywhere.
New England.
Beckham as a player has gone 6-10, 6-10, 11-5, 3-13, 5-11, 4-12, 6-10.
He's what's a one winning
One
season?
winning season. The year of the picture where you were all on a
and
boat.
then he failed to turn up for the playoff game.
Yes, he did.
So the whole team, even their star players, have no experience in winning. That's why they suck.
This is the most passionate I've seen you about subject
it's
nature. And I agree. I absolutely agree.
If you're gonna,
They needed
the
winners.
49ers have been pony for years. They bring in a winner on defence.
No, but to be fair,
Well, we're in the playoffs in 2014.
Yeah.
Championship game 2013.
I'm sorry.
Jim and I were saying the
2012.
Niners went off the cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the thing
And
is,
what John is saying is you brought in Richard Sherman who went, I'm not having this. We have to win.
And then we brought in Emmanuel Sanders that went, this
well-
is all right, but we need to be better.
Yeah,
but at the same
They're
time, they were
winners.
losing games by 3 points. They were losing games by kicks.
Yeah.
They were losing games.
Yeah, John's point is good.
You need winners.
Jimmy G came in from a Super Bowl winning team and went, I have to win.
We talked about it earlier. Lamar Jackson, does he have the mentality to win? We don't know. But when he gets to playoffs, he's been there twice.
And
And
he's
each
lost
time,
twice.
he's been embarrassed.
I'll tell you what, though, they brought in Mark Ingram, who is a winner.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there, or literally wasn't there.
Yeah,
You know,
it
if he
made
was-
a difference.
I think if he was there, that would have been probably would have been a different result.
We forget it a lot.
Yeah.
But what's Mark Ingram won?
But he's got to the playoffs with the Saints a number of
I
times.
think this is a really good point that
The
John is making.
psychology of the sport is we do forget more often, and they have a team of losers
Yeah, I think,
with an unknown coach.
sometimes we talk a lot about confidence, don't we?
Yeah.
And that is a big thing in this league, isn't it? Because, we're talking about very small margins between all of these players. These players come out of millions of people that play this game in America, through high school, college, so they are whittled down to be the elite, yeah? And I think we said once that at one point, every single person in the NFL was the best person at their position at, state level or college level or high school level. These people have all been winners and are elite athletes and sports people.
You even look at the backup quarterbacks.
All of them
exactly
are.
the same,
They are elite players.
Even Brian
Blow.
Hoyer.
No,
Nathan-
not
Nathan-
Brian Hoyer. The odd one slips through.
Nathan Peterman was the best in his state at
So
something.
it comes down to coaching. It comes down to game plans. It comes down to strategy, and it comes down to confidence. A lot of the time, the Niners are not that much different in terms of personnel than they were last year. We won some early games by a score rather than lost them by a score. but then it just started rolling. You try new things because you've got the freedom and the confidence to do it, haven't you? We've seen it in every sport.
So, taking what you've just said there and rolling into the college football playoff final, LSU versus Clemson, Joe Burrow's put up 6 touchdowns in the final.
5
touchdowns in the final.
He ran one in as well.
Yes, okay. So he counted for 6 scores, which was a record. He's thrown the most number of touchdowns was it 50 touchdown throws this season?
Like that,
He only got 463 yards.
Right.
God.
The undefeated season, they've beaten Clemson, who were the reigning champions. He beat Trevor Lawrence.
First college game Trevor Lawrence has ever lost.
Yep. So all these things, he's going to be drafted number 1 by the Bengals.
Without a doubt, Zach Taylor's already been in contact with his family and said, make sure he goes to Senior Bowl so we can start coaching him.
Yeah. So, having just said you need winners in order to win, what is there any chance Joe Burrow comes into that Bengals team next season and wins 5 or more games?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's coming in from college with a winning mentality.
But the team is pony.
If it depends on, as Gary says, coaching, it's team building. They need to get him rolling whilst he's confident and he's coming from this. Otherwise, if you don't, you end up with Baker.
Yeah, if he loses his first 3 games all in blowouts, that's season over.
I would keep Andy Dalton for another year, and
they're not going to.
They should though.
Your
should.
point's fair. It's like you keep a veteran quarterback in there.
I would keep Andy Dalton, and I would say AJ Green will go. So there's no way this team wins 5 games. So because they're going to use
they've got a star running back.
Top,
that's it.
Well, yeah, but half the time, yeah. So I would definitely keep Dalton. I would let the season die a death, and then I would, after 10 games, that's when you bring him in, and that's when you allow him to build confidence because he's the player that starts to turn that franchise around. That's what I'd do. I'd pick the schedule where it allows him to be competitive.
Okay.
Wherever that sits,
like the Giants did with Daniel Jones.
Whenever that sits within the season. So if that's like 8 games in, he plays after 8 games.
Like the Rams did with Keenum and Goff, that worked very, very well.
Yeah. Okay, so that's fine, but the chances of the Bengals doing that?
Slim.
None.
Virtually none, because Andy Dalton's already said he's leaving. He's disgusted with the way he was treated, and rightly so.
I mean, he's ginger though. Be fair.
Yeah.
Let's also remember who had a really great,
college career,
college playoff game, and everyone was Tebow. Let's
he won a national championship as well.
Exactly.
Tebow won playoff games.
Did Baker not win the national?
No. But he won a good few games.
That's the thing.
Jameis Winston won a championship, didn't he?
Yes.
The thing that if expectation,
So did Deshaun Watson.
Expectation and reality are gonna hit.
Yeah.
And it's how they deal with that.
Do you know what? I always feel bad for Tebow. He won more games than anybody ever remembers. And, all right, he wasn't a great quarterback. But in the modern league, like, if he turned up now, people would be saying, like, who said he was like Taysom Hill?
Yeah, he refused to be that, didn't he?
Yeah, he refused to be
But
the
if he
Taysom
turned
Hill
up
type
now,
gadget
he'd
player.
be like, oh, we better keep this guy around because this is the way the league's going. He was just early, and it didn't work out for him.
So he just
distraction,
came early.
He did.
He's a distraction. But yeah.
Anyway, very much looking forward to see Joe Burrow play, but also just bear in mind this has probably got next year's number 1
Trevor
draft
Lawrence.
pick, Trevor Lawrence, in it as well. So there is going to be another batch of teams that are going to be scamming for tanking
for Lawrence.
or losing for Lawrence or whatever you want.
Tanking for Trevor.
Tanking for Trevor.
Tanking for Trevor just sounds
wrong.
Sounds like you're going dogging.
But he's equally a very good, very, very good quarterback.
Well, unless we've got anything to bring up now, let's take a knee. But we'll thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week after the conference games. Until then, goodbye.